I'm a big user of AI. So I wake up in the morning, I do a self video journal, which is like mind dumping. Like, this is what I got to do today. Here's everything I missed. I've gotten really into the AI wearables. So I'm wearing something 24/7 that records all my conversations. And then beginning of my day, it all feeds into a GPT overwrap and comes out and says, this is what you're supposed to do all day from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, which for some people sounds really terrifying. But for me, it's very, very enlightening, because you lose the most productivity when you're switching or trying to figure out what you're supposed to do via decision fatigue. Yeah, I feel like I'm in a abusive relationship with GPT at this point. I just say what I need 24/7, and they go for it. Yeah, so AI wearables. This is not product placement, but I will give my favorite one. This is a little pin called Limitless AI. I
Okay.
pre-ordered this thing like 3 years ago, and it's probably one of my favorite products. It is just an AI wearable. It's a clip. It goes on any part of you, and it records everything you do pretty much 24/7 with speaker identification. And then it feeds the entire transcript wherever you want. I have it via going API into my Notion. But what's nice about it is it does speaker identification, which is like my favorite piece of it. It can say, hey, I can go to my huge journal inside of GPT and say, who was it that I was talking to 3 weeks ago about this project, and what was the outcome of the discussion? It'll come to me and it'll say, hey, 3 weeks ago you were supposed to talk to John about this, and this was the outcome. You were supposed to send an email. I added this as a task to your to-do list tomorrow. And that's kind of the extent which I'm at now, which is like pretty much every conversation I have, everything I do. I even have overlays on my screen that basically records everything I do. So at the end of each day, I'll get a summary on what I'm doing, what I'm not doing, and then how to really make the next day the most productive. Uh, at the end of the day, like, without overcomplicating it, it's a really, really simple to-do list for me with a very complicated back end. So for me, it's just log on. Here's everything I got to do. This order, this order, this order. And then for the back end is where all the magic, so to speak, happens.
Do you have kind of like an encyclopedia or like a journal of your knowledge base, which is in the back end, and that's where the kind of
Yeah.
day recordings feed into?
Yeah, absolutely. The knowledge, like, sometimes I'll just put stuff in there that I just want to research later, right? But I think the second brain, which is becoming a very popular terminology, and I'll call it the high productivity world, is it just eliminates decision fatigue, which I think is hard. There's a lot of studies, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, which talked about how judges right after noon will give the lightest sentences on inmates because they just had lunch, right? And they just are the best, in the best mood. And it's because it takes a lot of mental effort to make decisions of not only how to do something, but what to do. So I've just taken as much presence as I can to remove as much of the decisions and then just focus on the actions. And the decision is now basically a formula in a spreadsheet that says, if this, then do this, without having the emotional component, which is really taxing for us as humans. And that's like the knowledge base of what to do.
For a layman like myself, does that mean you've kind of aligned AI with your life goals and what you want to achieve? And then on
Yes.
a daily basis, you're like, I have this thing that I need to do, or this option. Can you make a decision based on this framework?
You're 100% spot on. It yearly goals, quarterly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals, daily goals, and it's just broken down into that. I think where you start to run into some weird things is things that you wouldn't even think about. You know, should I go get coffee, or where should I go to lunch with this guy? With meeting with someone, where should I go to lunch? My formula is wherever's closest. Not even think about it. Wherever is close, it doesn't even matter. But for many people, they may take 10, 15 minutes to decide, well, I wonder if that's something they'd like. Should I ask them where they would prefer, versus just the 15-minute, here are the two options. They're both within this distance. Which one do you want to go to? And
Okay.
like, if you're having a lunch with a business partner, that's like a great example of how to take even a small decision fatigue that would say, it's only 5 minutes, 10 minutes to make a decision, but now you've reduced it to seconds, which adds up rather quickly.
Sure. Just a question on this. Well, a couple of questions actually. So you said you're wearing this kind of clip on all day. Do you have kind of like a business CRM that's kind of up to date of, when you spoke to this person, this is the conversation you had, and then the reminders from that and the action items as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I like about speaker identification, right? So whenever I start a conversation, like I even did it with you, like I'd say, "Hey, nice to see XYZ," right? And then that's a pickup for it to say, "Oh, I'm going to associate this voice with this person now, and it's during this time slot because now it's connected to this time slot in my calendar. So I can say, at this time, you spoke to this person about these things, and then the action items will automatically come out of it. And yeah, it feeds into a CRM tied to you, right? So now I've got it like a dossier of Jordan, right? Here's everything Jordan and I have ever talked about. And I think like when I first started doing this, I have a lot of semi-intimate conversations. So I was like, I wonder what, like how the privacy is on this stuff. So I keep everything on like a local model because I've always been afraid of like, somebody getting my dirty laundry, which is far and few in between, but I don't want them to know what my favorite superhero is. So yeah, I've been very security conscious to keep everything on a local model, but unless it's running through running through like a Zap for summaries and stuff like that.
So you mentioned there kind of some aspect of personal conversations. A friend of mine said that he kind of uploaded transcripts of his therapy sessions and like a backstory to his life, and then was kind of asking the GPT questions on kind of like if there was a day-to-day issue. Is that something like, would you go into that kind of angle with this, or are you using it solely for kind of business stuff?
I think that it's like one and the same at this point. We talk about business. You and I, and probably a lot of people listening to this, I would consider, high performers slash workaholics is the actual way of representing it. And you find the most peace in your life when you have a good works, not schedule, but fulfillment level. I know people who work 4 hours a day that are the most stressed out I've ever seen in my entire life. And I know people who work 12 hours a day who are like living in a Zen garden, you know? And what I've found myself doing, that's the decision fatigue thing that I personally developed that because that was something I struggled with that I found from business coaching, which if you have a business coach, just so you know, that's big kid therapy. It's like a better way of saying it's work therapy. That's what a business coach is. And he went and told me, he's like, this is what you struggle with. It struggles with making a decision quickly because I like things to be perfect. I'm a perfectionist. I want it to I use the making lunch as an example. I used to go deep on this. This is like, I would stalk people to say, what's their favorite coffee shop? I go through their, like before I had a call with them, I'd go through their Instagram, go find where they would frequent and say, hey, we should meet here for coffee. Because I knew that this was a place that they'd really like. And that's like a great way of doing something. And it was a good way of research. But what I really realized is like, hey, that's an awesome thing, but I can either outsource that or I can just not do it. And the effect is going to be 99% of the change with 30 minutes of research versus 30 seconds of just doing it, So yeah, from a personal aspect, your outside of work life is going to be defined by the weakest link in the chain. And if your work life sucks, you're stressed about something, your personal life is going to suck and you're going to be stressed there.
So you're not drawing a line and you're kind of using these tools across all aspects.
I think so. I would say absolutely. We can always improve, and how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're late to meetings, you're probably late to dates too.
Okay. Next question is, and I just want to kind of round this off now before we spend the whole time talking about this. How do you stay on top of the kind of latest news, trends, and tools in the kind of AI space? And yeah, what are your top tools? You mentioned Limitless there. Could you give me maybe a top 3 to 5 that you're kind of working with?
Yeah. So I think like one, GPT is like number one, right? Like, let me break this into two questions. How do I stay on top of it? I'm super active on LinkedIn, and I want my business to survive. Those are the two ways. And if you want your business to survive, you have to be paying attention if you're in the marketing world, because it will not survive. If you're in construction, you're in like, more of a, I'd call it a physical labor position, you'll probably be fine. But I know people who are in real estate and construction who are printing cash. I met somebody the other day, he's a 24-year-old, and he's doing circles around multi-million-dollar companies just by integrating GPT agents in his real estate company. It's insane. But me personally, GPT is number one. Use it for probably everything, whether it be direct integration or using like Zapier through it. Number two, from the wearables, I use Limitless. Like I said, 24/7. It's amazing. And Limitless actually has another company called Rewind. And I would say everybody go look at Rewind too. Again, not product placement, not endorsed, but it's a really cool service. What Rewind essentially does is it records your computer screen 24/7, same thing as Limitless via audio, except it allows a rewind feature. So if you hold shift and scroll up with your mouse wheel or your trackpad, it just starts rewinding your screen. So you can say, oh, what was that page I just closed? And then you can just rewind the screen, or you can pull up a search bar and search it. And then the last one, which I think is becoming more and more in use, is Make. If anyone's heard of Make, it's like Zapier. But it just allows you to do a lot of connectedness between different platforms to automate everything. The first role that we hired, like I would say this year, And at the end of last year was automation specialists, AI, I call them AI prompt automation specialists, where we would have them sit in on meetings that of creative team, of ad buying team, and say, hey, great, how do you do this? How do you make this 100% automated? And not for the feature most people are like, is like to remove talent, but actually to increase capacity so that same talent could do, 5 or 10 times as much stuff. Starting with, and we said, went to everyone, what is the thing that you hate doing the most, right? What is the thing you hate doing the most? Because you don't want employees to get terrified that like AI is going to come take their job. You want them to get super excited about it. So what is the thing you hate the most? And then we had our AI prompt engineers be able to come in and start doing that stuff specific, which was like the filling out reports, the moving data from sheet 1 to sheet 2, the summarization, all the stuff that is perfect for, a simple automation.
We know how hard it is to scale in ecom. That's why we're on a mission to make it easy. So check out some of our other videos just like this one and subscribe so you don't miss your next big growth opportunity.